Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We've spent this whole day today talking about all the various ways in which we can extend our lives, all the latest innovations, all the things that are happening in the world. And yet, at the core of it, I think that there are two things that are also important to consider. One is certainly looking at wealth and how we plan to finance those futures. And if we have the abilities to finance those futures, how we're then able to combine longevity, wealth, and things like community, love, compassion, and the reasons why we want to stay alive, right? We're not just here to stay alive so we can hit a new KPI. We're here to stay alive because we want to contribute to the world, contribute to our families, and ultimately contribute to legacy, right? What is it, the future of the world that we want to see? And how are we going to achieve that? And so today, I think we have a really interesting conversation that could probably last for a very long time, but really looking at how we are approaching today exercising our wealth, to look at our families' futures, to think about this global world. And certainly when it comes to thinking about how we look at our own bodies and what is it that's catching up with science to our evolution and our humanity. Because at the end of the day, no matter what sorts of technologies we implement, as we just heard, we have feelings, we have emotions, and a big part of our driving life force here, I believe, is love. Now, I'm Syama Bunten. I am the founder of Wealth Catalyst, and at the foundation of everything, I believe that longevity is really here for us to live with vitality. And so, Doctor, I'd love to sort of get kick started with you. Can you share with us a little bit about your work today and sort of how you're reimagining what it looks like to be alive?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I originally come from Canada, and I came here to beautiful California. I've been here for 30 years, and it's made me younger. My brother is 11 years younger than I am, and he has far more gray hair than I do, but he lives in Canada. And I really think it's because I think, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche. I mean, Californians are pretty chilled out. I think that's true, and I've become pretty chilled out. And it's kind of weird when I go back to Canada. Everybody seems strange. They're tense and they're like agitated, and I come back here and oh, it's so nice to be
Which is
back.
not what you think about Canadians, actually, right? Like, I feel like we have.
Well, I am Canadian. I can tell you a few things about them. But in general, well, I think we'll leave that for another discussion.
Another
But
conversation.
yeah,
Okay.
I think the stereotype for the Californian, just like, it's true. So about that, so I definitely, I'm trying to extend our lives because I live in such a beautiful location. And about the people, it is kind of about the people because I know so many amazing people. Like, for example, my friend's father won the Nobel Prize. He reorganized the periodic table. He discovered plutonium. He was chancellor of the University of California, and that's just one of my friends. And I have another friend that won a Nobel Prize as well. Her name is Elizabeth Blackburn. So I have three friends that either are related to Nobel Prize winners or have won the Nobel Prize themselves. Now, anywhere else in the world, that'd be pretty much impossible to do, right? I mean, there's not be a big cluster of Nobel Prize winners in other places except for
Sure.
here. So that and the fact that I have a 20-minute drive to the beach, 40-minute drive to Napa Valley, 2-hour drive to Lake Tahoe. I mean, yeah,
Life is good.
life is good, and I want to have more of it. And so I'm doing everything in my power to extend my health span, which is a word that we need to learn, health span, because there's lifespan that nobody wants to live an extra 20 years in a wheelchair,
That's right.
right? So it's all about the health span. So that's my goal, is to give us more health and more life at the same time.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Antonio, would you share with us briefly a little bit about your work and sort of how you're approaching this concept of how we look at family systems and, legacy and how we're really thinking about, not just living here, but possibly living other places?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. So, Henley and Partners, we help connect people with countries where people can choose where they want to live, as we live longer, we might want to experience different things, different lifestyles, retire somewhere else, invest in other places. And countries around the world are really competitive, and they're looking for capital and human capital. And they're building systems and programs and creating very attractive investment opportunities for investors to, in return, provide them with a residency or a citizenship. We all hear about tax havens. We're now hearing more about health havens. And examples are Turkey, the UAE, Panama, all countries are New Zealand. They're really investing in their infrastructure, their healthcare systems to attract people that are looking to live longer, but live longer, happy lives. And that's what longevity is to me.
Yeah, I love that. So, Dr. Steve, one of the things that I find so much alignment is that you're right now working on studies and focusing on women.
Yes.
And I've built an entire platform around how we can help women take more financial agency to create longevity and vitality in their personal, financial, and their lives. And as we all know, women live longer than men historically.
Yep.
We also know that, women have to get more creative when it comes to investing because unfortunately, we still only earn 85 cents on the dollar and we don't get 15% discounts when we go shopping. So we're living longer and we have to really figure out how to have these robust, long lives. When it comes to this health span, right, and thinking, reimagining what it looks like to be a woman, can you share a little bit, because you're a man, can you share a little bit about your research, what you're doing right now, and how this is really important for us to think about what might be future for the near term?
Okay. So yes, I've been studying aging for quite a long time, for decades, in fact. And one of my students, about 7 years ago, one of my female students said that we should look at female menopause because it's a great analogy for just human aging in general. Okay. And I thought about it and I did some more research and I looked into it more deeply and I was completely bowled over by that idea. And ever since we've been looking into that and try to basically delay the process. But about the inequity as far as women are concerned, you said about 85% on the dollar. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How many of you guys have flown in the last month? Can you put up your hand?
Oh, I wish I said no.
Okay. Did you know the flight attendants are not paid until the plane leaves the gate?
Yes.
Do you know that? So when the flight attendants get on the plane and do their things, they are not being paid. I found this out and I just couldn't believe it. So inequity, absolutely. And by the way, about that, 85% of the single family households in this country are run by women.
That's right.
My mother raised two boys by herself and started, by the way, a business, which was very successful. So I am in unbelievable awe. And by the way, I've been married for 37 years as well. So I
You're a
try to
fan
be,
of
I try to be a
women.
good husband. Yeah. So when my student came to me with the idea about looking into menopause, you know what? I think I owe a bit of a debt to women, because they've done a heck of a lot for me. So I think I'd love to do something for them, and also at the same time, really kind of extend not just women's lives but our lives as well. So
That's right.
yeah, so that's kind of how I got on this track, and I can go into more detail about that. But I just want to kind of give you guys an understanding why my research is in that direction.
And as we learned earlier, as Nick recollected, our why is
Yeah.
such an important fundamental to the work we do, the purpose, the passion. I'd love to double click on that.
Yeah.
I know that these days, women's healthcare, thinking about menopause,
And we don't talk about menopause either. It's
we
something
don't
we
talk
should talk
about
about,
it.
right? Yeah.
But, I have to say, it's becoming a lot more localized. We're talking about these things. There are
Yeah.
more companies that are popping up to
Right.
talk about this and address this. And I think it's so essential. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, bring us all up to speed here on the nature of menopause and really sort of historically, possibly what it was designed to do.
Sure.
And why we may want to be rethinking the way that we've historically been thinking
Exactly.
about
And I'll just preface that by saying, many women are postponing having children until later so they can have their careers. But that clock is ticking, and there's a deadline called 45 years old. So typically, women will get into menopause at that age, and pretty much, if you want to have kids after that, it gets very, very difficult every year that goes past that. And so it's kind of a double whammy that they want to have a career, they want to have a family, And I'm trying to kind of facilitate that by postponing menopause indefinitely through my research. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely, absolutely.
exciting. Yeah.
And there are other benefits from that too. As you know, after menopause, many of the cancers that women experience occur after menopause. They really start to skyrocket. So cervical cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, and of course we all know about the bone density issues,
That's right.
the muscle wasting, cognitive issues, and list. I mean, it's a very long list. I could continue, but I think we get the picture. It's a big problem, and it's not just a problem for women. But if you look at divorces, many divorces take place during that period because men are men, and I think we understand what that means. And they tend to focus on themselves, not so much on their partners. Okay. And many men are not as understanding and sympathetic as they should be. And that's what happens is the woman's going through this process that neither of them really understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So because the understanding of a female menopause is really, we haven't really talked about it for very long because it's been sort of a taboo.
That's right. And I think what's interesting about menopause is, we were discussing earlier how we just simply, and through the lens of longevity, we didn't all plan to live so long.
We didn't. No.
Right. So if we look at sort of even where we are today, right, we're talking about living to maybe 100, or my grandmother lived till she was 95. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot more years to start planning for. But if we think about all the technologies and all of these ways in which we're going to be extending our lives, obviously our biology and physiology on its own sort of needs to be able to keep up in a
Keep up,
certain sense.
right.
And we simply haven't. So can you speak a little bit to sort of what was the original evolutional timeline for us to die?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, we experience, or women experience menopause at 45. Now, typically, I mean, going back, gosh, maybe 200 years, average lifespan was about late 30s, 38. I think it was 39. One of the speakers here said it was 39. I think I said I was sitting there, I said 38. So 39 years old. So you're gonna, if you're a woman, you won't be around to even have menopause. So it's not a problem. At least it wasn't a problem a long time ago. And by the way, another thing that thankfully we've solved is women used to die at very large numbers during childbirth. If you ever watched the Downton Abbey, I think one of the daughters there died of eclampsia, which is no longer a case now because we've dealt with that. But childbirth used to be a very kind of a risky thing to do, and so we've made lots of progress, but there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, I
And
love
so bottom line, we're only designed to last about 39 years, but thankfully we've gone way past that. And I think most of us would like to kind of go longer.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if we can prevent sort of all the side effects, if you will, that
right.
menopause causes for us,
Many, yeah,
and be able to live more vitality and be able to live healthier and happier lives,
right.
then it makes the life worth living for.
Sure.
Right. And I think that that's an important concept, right? What
Yeah.
is worth living for? And so, Antonio, I'd love to sort of talk about this life that you're helping people have that's worth living for, right? You talked a little bit about some of these health havens. And obviously, we all know about, I don't know how many people in this room kind of was like, I'm going to buy a house in Portugal, like it's time to get my citizenship. And obviously, those rules and things keep changing. But in my mind, if I'm going to live till I'm 100, and that's maybe on the short end of all the technologies, then that means that the way that I relook at things like retirement, right? The way that I relook at things like where I want to live or how I want to spend my time and with my family, it all gets turned up on its head and it becomes a question of values, right? And what's important to me. So I'd love to hear from you how you're sort of working with families to think about what a life more expansively can look like and what those opportunities can be.
Yeah, thank you. We help individuals become global citizens, basically. We live in a world where constant change and geopolitical tension, and people are looking for optionality, either driven by politics or lifestyle, and longevity is becoming a significant driver of those decisions. And so we help families create legacy planning. I mean, imagining getting a citizenship in Portugal, you mentioned, But you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for your kids, your grandkids. It's a lifelong decision that can change your whole family, and create opportunities beyond just investment, lifestyle, retirement, access to healthcare, different approaches to medicine, to
Right,
treatment.
right.
So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think is so wonderful, and I'm sure when we all travel abroad and go to Europe and we realize all this intergenerational living that's happening and, you know, how there's so much more connective tissue within families and communities. And it's not uncommon to see your grandma out at 11 o'clock at night in Spain, you know, as well as the 15-year-olds. And so there's a different sort of cultural way in which we look at family and community, right? Outside of your nucleus of family, but what does that community look like? And so I'd love to know, like, what are some of the countries that people are turning to and looking at, right? And saying, wow, these are communities and cultures that I actually not just are great for, let's say, you know, tax or, you know, to have possibility or optionality, but really because these communities are places where we might be able to thrive better.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think somebody said it at dinner yesterday that living longer meant having a community, connections with people. And I think, you know, places like in Italy, for example, makes total sense. The people that, you know, the blue zones, they figured out that the people that lived there longer wasn't because only the diet, but also because they had connections with their families. You know, things happen in the dining table. And so that's what people are after. And we help make that happen. We facilitate that. So when it comes to creating communities, we assist our clients with that. So it's not just beyond, it's beyond residency or a citizenship or a passport. It's also about community, creating, you know, a life for you and for your family as well.
So give us the lowdown. Where are the places? You know, like where what are we going to chat GPT? Like, all right, like where should we be moving to, or where should we be thinking about residency?
I personally love New Zealand, so I think it's a great place, especially if you live in California. It makes total sense to pursue opportunities there. Lifestyle, less pollution, lower population density, great education, stable government, English speaking, great wine, good cheese,
Yeah.
chocolate, you name it. So I personally like that. And I have Italian heritage, so I always do like Italy. It's
You're
an
telling
option.
everyone go to Italy and hang out with my
Or
family.
Portugal is a wonderful place as well. Yes.
And so as you're working with families to determine their values, right? A big part of this, I think, is, you know, what's important to us, what's important to our legacy. I think wealth is, again, not just to live a long life and with vitality, but legacy and what are the important things? What are some of the ways in which you sort of guide a family or some questions to think about when they're even saying, huh, might it be a possibility for us to consider living somewhere else or to have this optionality? How might you take a family or someone through that process of thinking about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a relationship that we build with clients. It's really long term. We also want to know what the family unit size is, right? What are your plans? Do you want to live there? Do you maybe want to expand a business? You might be a founder here, or a repeat founder, and you might want to access different markets. So those are questions that we ask to just determine the profile of our clients and choose and help them choose the more suitable program. Sometimes clients of ours are simply looking for a place to call it a home base. You know, they might have an affinity to a country in, let's say, Italy, for example. They want to spend time there beyond 90 days. And
You
so
suggest they go and check it out first?
definitely,
You know?
definitely. We have a lot of people asking us about countries they'd never visited before. I'm like, well, maybe you should take a trip there and see if
Yeah.
you actually like it.
Yeah.
And so we do encourage that. And we have offices in those countries that allow the people to experience the daily life, because it's one thing to go as a tourist, but then once you're a resident or a citizen, it's a whole different story.
You know, I totally agree. So I recently have been in conversations. My mother is from the island of Mauritius and recently was like, oh, maybe I should, you know, think about what it might look like to have a passport there and to live there, what life is like. And I have cousins there, and you know, the idea, and I'm like chat GPTing, you know, what are the benefits. And then all of a sudden I read, oh, I got to spend 183 days there, you know, over the next 2 years. And I was like, man, like, do I
Want to.
really, you know, and Mauritius, for those of you who don't know, is historically a great place to vacation. But as far as like industry and what to do and, you know, the social infrastructure, do I want to hang out with all 20 cousins? Probably not all the time. And so I think those sorts of ideas, right, around what is it life like really,
Right.
right? What are the health infrastructure components of that? You know, as Dr. Steve mentioned, there's, you know, a tremendous amount of health infrastructure here, and you know, we're talking about the latest in technologies. But I think it's fascinating to think about, you know, the 360 of your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just simply don't know until you go and experience and try it out. I think that's really fascinating. So, Dr. Steve, as you're sort of looking down your, you know, crystal ball here, right? And obviously, we all know in this room that from research to, you know, your first clinical trials to getting anything out there, there's a tremendous amount of time. And unfortunately, many doctors today are pressed with the abilities to be able to know things but can't practice them. And,
Right.
you know, we have 20-year timelines here when it comes to taking products to market. And that sucks
Yeah.
because in that 20 years, people die. There are all sorts of things that can be cured. And you know, it's a long time, so much in terms of women's health as well. Like these studies, they take so long.
They do.
So
Well,
what are you
that's
seeing?
another reason why, again, going back to the menopause model, why it was really attractive to me. Because, again, if you're going to be doing work with lab animals and you want to increase their lifespan, it takes a long time. And my clock has been running for quite a long time. I don't have that much time left. So I wanted a model that would give me results quickly. Now, if we can postpone menopause in a rat, let's say, by 6 months, that is unbelievably dramatic. And I could probably devote,
What's the lifespan of the rats? We know that.
well, that
What
that
is that?
that should increase proportionally as well.
Yeah.
But again, if we could have those animals continue to reproduce past that normal scale, I think that's going to be very, very compelling. And so it's certainly better than, so a lab rat lives for about 3 years. So if we want to do something dramatic by extending that by, you know, by a factor of two, I'm going to have to wait, you know, 18 months instead of 6 months. And so for me, that makes a big difference. And also, like if there's a failure, I can, you know, redo it or correct it, and it takes me just another 6 months to do it. So the turnaround time is much, much faster using this model versus just like seeing how long it lives. Now, the two should go hand in hand, but like I said, that alone, by postponing that problem that women have, is a huge benefit to everybody.
Yeah, and it'd be great to not have it be a problem, right? You know,
Right,
so it's
right,
like, you
right.
know, this
And, and,
idea
and,
that
and as I said, it's not just so much the menopause, it's all the things that happen after, as I
Mhm.
mentioned, the cancers and the
Yeah.
bone, the muscle, and of course the skin. I
Yes,
don't know.
of course.
I hear that women are concerned about their skin. Is that
It
correct?
is correct.
Yeah.
I am well versed
Are there
in the
cosmetics out
community.
there? Is that correct?
There are all sorts of products,
Yeah.
Dr. Steve. You
So,
know,
so
there's
if we,
there's a whole world
yeah,
that is here to
yeah.
help us
So if we can
experience that.
ameliorate that problem, I think that alone would be kind of a beneficial. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I also think that there, again, this is not a women's health panel, but, you know, as far as like the introductions of HRTs and all these
Right. Right.
things
Exactly.
to sort of help us
Exactly.
live
Yeah.
better lives,
Right.
right? And ultimately, you know, I think what's so valuable is if we can, you know, get our hormones and get these things into a place where we have some agency and control over that,
Exactly.
we then
Exactly.
have a lot more agency over things like, you know, what people and companies we can invest in and have more
Exactly.
flexibility as
Exactly.
far as focusing on
Exactly.
the regenerative natures of
Right.
what makes our lives
And
exciting.
you said it in that it's going to have to be an individualized process, okay? Because we're all different. Women are different. Their hormones uh, are secreted differently at different times, at different concentrations. So we'll definitely have to do a personal solution. And the solutions that exist today are definitely they're basically Byzantine.
Yeah.
Okay, we still use like pills. I mean, a pill was invented 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, by the little old lady in the little village that would, you know, put the herbs together and say, "Here, put this in your mouth and swallow it."
Yeah.
So a pill, as far as delivering a drug, is is a very antiquated way of doing it, and we're coming up with better ways of doing that.
What are some better ways of doing it?
I'll have to have you sign an NDA.
I think we'd all do that, you know.
So everybody, please, there's the form out there. Please sign it and then come back in the room and we'll talk about
I
it.
mean, that's fascinating to think about new ways of being able to experience treatments and
Absolutely.
ways of being able to
Absolutely.
experience therapies and
Absolutely.
stuff like
We talked about circadian rhythm, and that's certainly a component of what we'll be doing and addressing, because again, that's something that nobody talks about, especially in medicine. We just, throw the medication out there, and sometimes we remember to take it, and sometimes we don't. And that's a huge
Right.
problem in itself. Yeah.
You know, I agree with that. You know, there's I have my husband laughs, I don't know where he is, but you know, I have my supplement stack, you
Right.
know, and I'm like, all right, you know, I'm the person who's putting it in the baggies, and it's
Right.
like
Right.
it's a real pain in the butt, right? You
Sure.
go on a
Sure.
trip and you're like, oh, I forgot the 6 pill boxes of all the things to,
Exactly.
you know. And someone asked me the other day, they said, Shama, how do you know that what you're taking is working? And I looked at them and I said, because I think I'm aging very well. And sometimes that is the only way that you know, right? Like there are some things that you don't know, but over time, I think the longest supplement that I've taken it was like an NAD plus supplement, and been on it for maybe, I don't know, 7 years at this point. And I'm 42 now, and I'm like, man, I feel great. You know, I have all these other things I'm taking, but for me, it's truly the time, right? That
Right.
helps us really
Right.
understand these things.
And you shared with your age, and not too many people do that. I personally will not tell you how old I am, because if I do, I'll actually feel old. So that's another thing. I think fooling yourself is kind of a nice thing to do, and it's pretty cheap. So I personally think I'm 29, which is always a surprise to my son, who's 29 years old. I said, you know what? Don't worry about the math. Just go with the flow, right? So this is a simple, obviously sleep well, exercise, but just pretend you're 29. I don't care how old you are, but
I don't know, Dr. Steve. I gotta
no,
say, I told a girlfriend of
hey,
mine, she
you know
was
what?
like, let's be
Brainwashing
young.
works, and it even works better if you do it yourself. Okay.
All right, but let me caveat this with,
Yes.
would you take advice from your 18-year-old self on anything? Probably not. Okay, so maybe 35 is a good age.
We'll do 35. That's the
Okay,
deal.
great.
You got
I love
yeah,
that.
for sure.
And so, Antonio, you know, as you're sort of looking down your crystal ball, obviously everyone has a lot of geopolitical things in mind, economy stuff, how we sort of think about universality on this planet. In many moments, the world seems very big. In many moments, it seems very small. And I think it depends on what you're reading, how often, and your mindset as you're approaching to things. And your line of work, as you're working with families to think about where they're going to be generationally, and you're sort of seeing trends in these areas. What are some of the things that are in your crystal ball as far as how families are approaching living in this global way?
How families are approaching.
Yeah, and more people, certain concentrations, like what is the crystal ball in your work tell you?
I think it's hard to say, but what is clear is that you need options.
Yeah.
Options. And now more than ever. So that's why we encourage our clients to look at options, have options, plan Bs, plan Cs, plan Ds. That's unfortunately that's where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I think optionality is great. I know we have just a minute left. You know, I'd love to impart on this audience something more personal, you know, about what is the vision, you know, and we're talking about longevity all day, but what is the vision of the world that you want to see, right? Like what does legacy look like for each of you? Because obviously we're going to be living here for a long time,
Yeah.
and how we spend our time and energy and with purpose, I think is so critical to the lens that we choose to live out this world, and also in part on our community. So Dr. Steve,
Mm.
what is the legacy here? What is the vision of the world that you're working towards?
So I'll answer that in a bit of a roundabout way. A long time ago, we were worried about overpopulation. Okay, we were going to basically take over the planet and we destroy it. Now, if you can imagine, when you go to a hotel room, some people just like go to a hotel and they leave a mess. They let the cleaning staff take care of it because you're only there for a day or two. But imagine if you were there for 100 days and there were no cleaning staff, you'd probably want to keep, the hotel room in good order. So that's an analogy for the Earth. If you were going to be around for a long time, you may not mess the Earth up as much as you do today.
I love that.
So you're going to be around for 100, maybe 200, maybe longer. So do you really want to like destroy the Earth? Because you're going to be there to reap the consequences. So
That's right.
I think if we live longer, we'll just take care we'll take better care of where we live. So I think that's the benefit of longer living.
Awesome. And Antonio, your hot take here. I know we're out of time. But what is your fast vision? What is it you're working towards in this planet?
Wow. Well, hard to beat that. That's really good.
Oh, you can do it.
Yeah, come on.
No, come on.
Well, I mean, so for me, longevity means living. It's not how long you live; it's how you live it.
Yeah.
Like I recently had something personal. Family member passed away.
Sorry to hear
Or
that.
yeah.
She was 98. My grandma lived a long life,
Yeah.
but for the last 10 years, she had dementia. So is that really living?
Mm.
And so this is tough for the family, but it makes us, look at our options, and not options, but also uh, review our life and how we want to live it. And I would rather live a short, beautiful life than a long one when I'm not healthy.
Mm.
So
I love
I think, yeah, so that's it.
It's beautiful. I'll leave the audience here. My vision of the world is one where we get to lead with our values and our love and generosity. And I think through the lens of thinking about longer lifespans, creating and accumulating more wealth also comes the opportunity to deploy it strategically to further humanity. And I think that that is a privilege and a right that we all get to have. And so I'll leave us with that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was great.